All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Two Track Mind podcast. I am your host, Jason Liu. I'm joined by our good friend, Jason Lee, and we're going to try and do a different format this time around. We're still going to be doing our interview-driven podcast, but those gotten some feedback that tend to be long. I think our running average is about like 2 hours for those, and so it's a little bit deeper to discussion to get through, but I think still want to keep going with that format, but I wanted to do something a little bit different where it's more of like a weekly catch up and we kind of just touch on a few different topics, right? And today we're just going to test it out. And I've got Jay here to be the guinea pig with me on how this is going to go. So a couple things we want to a couple things we want to touch on today. A few different segments, but the content is going to be, we're going to talk about the Supra Final Edition, A90 Final Edition. Can you believe it's already been 5 years?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy. We're going to talk about some crazy stuff that's happening with Tesla and recalls. Not track related, but I think there's some interesting things going on. They're just stuff that's happening in the car industry. And then we're also going to talk about one of our friends, Brandon, launched a new business, Revozport. They're doing body kits for G Series cars, correct?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
This is what Jackie Ding's running now, and M-Tech is also sporting an M4 car. One last thing I want to talk about today is also going to be about, we want to do a bit of a segment of just like tips and tricks, so to speak, on track driving. And the topic I want to talk about today, just to kind of test this segment out, is on trail braking. So we're going to tap into our minds and what we've been instructed from, professional racers, telling us how to kind of think about the concept of trail braking. How this basically breaks down is I came up with some like fun names for these segments, and we're probably not going to touch on every single one of these segments every episode because if there's just nothing to talk about, we won't do it. But the first segment we're going to talk about is going to be, I called it the driver's meeting, give it a little play on words with track days. And that's where we're going to talk about just like industry news, right? Then we're going to do shop talk. So that's about mods, building cars. And then we're going to talk about the Revozport. And we're going to talk about things that are just going viral in the car space as well. Like if there's like any reels or videos that have really popped off, just to get our reactions and comments on that. And the last thing about, driver tips and tricks, I call that HPD corner. So high performance drivers education. And then we'll do Q&A. I actually posted on Instagram, was it last week? Last week for people to give us some questions, and there's some ridiculous ones and some serious ones. So we'll kind of get through that. But let's get to the top of the agenda, which is the driver's meeting. And we're going to talk about the A90 Final Edition. So just a little bit of context, right? The A90, the Mark V, came out basically 5 years ago. I can't believe it's
crazy. They're already talking about the new one, and we're on the final edition, right? It's crazy. It's, for you guys, the new one is actually going to be speculated. Maybe it's more than speculation at this point, but it's be a Mazda Toyota partnership, which is crazy, right? Why do you think that is, Jason? Why not BMW again?
Well, I think it could be an ego thing where a lot of people, when they first saw the A90, they're like, oh, underneath it all, it's a BMW. It's an M car.
Yeah.
Right? And as Toyota does, right? Like the styling, it doesn't look BMW.
Not at all.
To be honest, actually, I find the styling, like if you told me without having known what that car was, if you told me that this is Mazda styling, I probably would have believed you.
Yeah, I actually agree.
It's got like those, like soft curved lines. Like you put that next to the Mazda Vision cars or whatever, and all the renders of the like potential future RX whatever.
Yeah, like an RX-8, maybe like a new RX-8 or something like that.
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. But yeah, I mean, like we know under the hood, it's B58, it's 8 HP, and I think that's like classic Toyota where I absolutely believe they put a ton of effort into that car, especially for let's say handling tuning. I probably believe it because it drives different than M cars,
right,
and that's what Toyota did a lot with the 86s as well. It's like it's being manufactured out of Subaru plants, but that the tuning of the car, right, is very Toyota.
Absolutely.
But the interesting thing with the final edition is there's only right now they've only said 300 units, 150 to Japan, 150 to pretty much all of Europe. It is going to be lottery, right? If the domestic price 15 million yen, which roughly translates to like just under 100,000 euros, but in the European domestic markets, it's going to be like I've seen like 140,000 euros.
Yeah,
which is like who's going to buy this car?
It's crazy because, I mean, you look at what you get in the final edition. Like, for example, you get like the Recaro podium seats. Those are like 10 to 12,000 Canadian dollars, maybe around 9,000 US dollars.
Yeah.
You know, a few other things here and there. You could build one yourself for way, way cheaper. You could build your own crazy Supra with those seats, with some of those styling. You can personalize it yourself. You can do way more with that money. I don't know. I don't know if this is really gonna sell. If this is really a final edition, right? Because they were teasing like the GRMN edition of the Supra potentially coming, and that had the newest G Series BMW M car engine, or was speculated to potentially have, which is the S58. That would have probably commanded that type of price.
You think BMW would have given them the S58?
I don't think so. I mean, that was all speculation. Like, oh, maybe this is going to come out. Maybe that's going to happen. Of course, it never did. But we have this final edition Supra. But I'm saying that if they went down that route, I think that car could have commanded that price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the comparison is basically you can get like a fully loaded M4, right? Like an M4 CS for that price range. I guess.
Yeah. I guess so. But, you know, if that Supra, that chassis, it is lighter. You know, if you had that S58, I think it would just destroy all the M cars, you know, like the new, you know, M4, M3, they'll like, you know, 36, 37, 3,800 pounds, 3,900 pounds in the X-Drive, right? The Supra with that motor would just be insane. But unfortunately, that's not reality. We have this final edition Supra that's really expensive, and I don't really know. I don't really see the value unless you're maybe a collector saying like, "Oh, I have the last one," you know?
Yeah. Damn, I just got a splinter. This is so annoying.
Oh, yeah?
I'm going to have to deal with this later. So speaking of collector, right? So one of the things that I did read is this is going to be a 6-speed only. Yeah, I mean, that basically makes me think like this is purely like a collector's car or like a weekend car kind of thing. Like you might track this, but like if you're going for lap times, I don't know, the AHP is like a pretty fast transmission. Yeah. Right. And yeah, that to me, like it's probably the right decision because like you're commanding such a high premium for this car. That if you want that collector status in the same way where it's like, you want a 9A 1.4.0, you want it in the 6-speed. You probably don't want the PDK. It's not going to be outright, a GT track car, but it's probably going to hold its value better.
Right.
With a 6-speed. But yeah, and then you said like the next Supra, the rumors are that it could be a partnership with Mazda. I like that, there are these intercompany collaborations on these Halo cars.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of it. Like what can we say that if this were to happen, what in your mind, what does Mazda bring to the table?
I mean, I think with their sports cars like Miata, I think they're more on the mindset of like, don't put a whole ton of power in things, stick to the roots, right? Like look at the Mazda Miata. It's been around for so long, right? You have so many generations. We're on the ND3 now, but even that car hasn't gained much weight since the original Miata.
Yeah.
Right. Just a little bit. Right. So they kind of stick to their roots. They kind of know what the enthusiast wants. You don't need a crazy ton of power, but you just need to stick to like a lighter weight, rear-wheel drive, manual sort of recipe that is simple, that people love. So I hope that Mazda sort of brings that fun factor, that light factor that no one else really in the market now is making. Cars are getting heavier. They're just compensating with more and more power, more and more technology. But I hope we can see a very simple car out of Toyota and Mazda.
Yeah. I don't know how light it can be though, because it's going to be, at least in my mind, it's got to be a 6-cylinder. Yeah. And I think that's like the other thing that people are going to critique is Toyota and Mazda. Neither of them have anything that's going to be like rivaling the B58 or the S58.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of BMW's special sauce right now, right?
Yeah.
You have the high volume B58, super reliable. People love it for that. It makes a ton of jam. And by the way, this is going to be the most powerful B58 in the final edition, which is why I don't think like the only reason why BMW would be okay with that is if they're never going to give away the S58. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next topic. Not track related, but this is kind of interesting. So Tesla Cybertrucks just announced a full recall on all of them because some of the body trim is just flying off because they're just glued on, right? Which it's not like super rare, but like I guess like for exterior body panels, that's kind of like the first that I've heard of it. And so it's basically the trim piece that goes from the bottom of the windshield up, like traditionally where you have like your A-pillar, and then kind of because it's kind of like a point on the roof of the Cybertruck, right? It's not curved. It goes like up at a slope and then down at a slope, like that L-shaped piece is flying off.
Yeah.
And have you seen a Cybertruck in person? Like,
I have seen.
Have you touched them?
Oh, I have touched them.
You know, like the have you touched the panel edges?
Yeah, they're sharp.
They're sharp,
sharp.
right?
Yeah.
It's like it's almost like just think of it as like, you know, steel plates that haven't really been deburred is kind of like how I see it. And so like something like that flying off.
It's crazy.
It's kind of crazy, right?
It's crazy. That car is so dangerous both for the people in it and the people who are around it, right? It's just crazy.
Why is it dangerous for people in it?
I don't know, man. That car is just, in my opinion, like it shouldn't be on the road. It's so heavy. Like, so I just looked it up. It's 6,800 pounds, but has a crazy towing capacity, but like very short range.
Way off.
Very short range, yeah. But 6,800, but still, it's crazy amount of moving weight, right?
Okay, so moving on to shop talk today. I wanted to talk about the Revozport body kit. Okay, so just for some context here, Revozport, a company that our friend Brandon has been pushing forward. They're working with Jackie Ding with his M2 in the US. They're working with MTech in the new M4.
That's right. Super excited about that.
Yeah, so you probably know more about this kit than most people out there right now because it's like so new, right? Can you talk to me a little bit about the design philosophy? And I guess like this is kind of going to be muddled in a little bit as well with like why MTech decided to move from the M2 platform to the M4 platform as well.
Right. So we'll start with that. So the M2 was an amazing car. We did the various engineering package on that car. And I think that brand is really good for sort of like half street, half track sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. I know a lot of cars run their kits. They do really, really well in GLTC, but for a full send time attack build with no restrictions, if we were trying to do like global time attack, really take it to the next level, Revozport was the way. And the thing is, the G87 M2, we only had it on a off-the-shelf map. So it was making about 600 horsepower. And part of that is that the tune wasn't very linear. The throttle wasn't very linear. Those are some problems. And the car was a little bit twitchy.
Yeah.
But we wanted to go big power. So if we start doing custom tunes, we start using, ethanol, maybe even bigger turbos in the future. These G Series cars are doing sub 10 quarter miles with minimal mods. We can get into the 800, 850, 900 horsepower range pretty easily. So we're thinking, okay, do we totally strip out this M2 and there's no going back? We start cutting stuff out, we do all this stuff and we do a Revozport kit with it. Or do we move to, sell this car? We could have parted it out very easily, which we did.
Yeah.
And then sell the car, which we did. And then we get into an all-wheel drive car. Because we think if we're going really, really, really big power, all-wheel drive. It's going to put it down, put 315 square, plus the Revozport kit. And then in that car, that platform that we go long-term with, we start cutting stuff up, taking the weight out, really being serious with it. We think that could be a better long-term time attack car.
Yeah. How long did the shop have the M2 for? I felt like just a year.
It was so short. I mean, I drove it the first time in December of 2023.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we got rid of it December of 2024. It was gone.
Do you think the G87 M2 is going to be a forgotten car in the future, like 10, 20 years down the road? People are just going to be like, yeah, it was kind of blip on the radar.
I don't think so. People like that little bit of a smaller package, even though the weight is really the same as like an M4. It's not that much lighter.
Yeah.
But I think people like the styling in the M2 a little bit better than the M4 because it still has those kidney grills, still looks a little bit more like a BMW than the huge grills on the M4s and M3s. I don't know. It's hard to say unless BMW really starts to change their styling, just keep moving towards that path.
Yeah.
And then that's just the new BMW look moving forward, right? But I don't know if it's going to be, you know, forgotten, but it's a great car, I have to say, in terms of like fun factor, sliding it around, really good car. But in terms of like, we want to take it to the next level. We want to go really, really fast. We want to put down the power. We want to go big power. We want to go big aero.
Yeah.
We felt like M4 is probably a good platform. The shop is filled with front engine rear-wheel drive or mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars. Let's try something new. Let's try some all-wheel drive. Let's learn. Okay. Let's develop. Let's have some fun along the way. And in respect to Revozport, like you said, they're working with Jackie Ting on the G87 M2. It was a great opportunity for us to talk with Brandon and say, hey, let's do an M4 kit. And then we just got to work, right? Yeah. Brandon works really fast. He has an amazing team. He has a factory that is, you know, new for Revozport race. And they do amazing work. The fitment is spot on. And his chief engineer, he's done a ton of stuff. He's done like Hooney Pig. He's done like a bunch of Porsche race cars. Of course, he's working with Revozport, but he is like one of the best aerodynamicists. He knows a lot about cars as well, through and through, automotive enthusiast and engineer. Yeah. So he's the right guy for the job. Yeah. Previously at Veris, now with Revozport. And I think at Revozport, he kind of has the free reign to go crazy because I think some of the Veris products, like I said, they're you can still street them, right? Yeah. But some of these Revozport parts, they're like huge wings, gigantic splitters with tunnels, like a lot of stuff that maybe it does become a trailer to the track sort of car.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's a different market. Because I do think like the very sweet spot is for people who still have the want to maintain the ability to be able to drive to the track, right? not look super out of place on that's right. On the highway, right? Or like, you know, being too wide with a crazy splitter, still being able to go on some ramps and stuff like that. So
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you've seen the new kit in person already? Is it on hand?
So the M4 kit, we are 3 weeks out from receiving it. Okay. But we've seen some of the parts, like pictures, videos. Yeah. The renders are all, they're great. Like all the CFD is done. There are real downforce figures on the M2 now. You can actually go on Revozport Race's website and just take a look at their kit and some of their downforce numbers. Yeah. The M4 will be similar. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. What's your favorite part of the body kit design so far?
I really like the fenders. Yeah, front fenders. Yeah, it's hard to make vented fenders look good on a BMW. Like on a Porsche, they look great. On a BMW, it just kind of looks funny for some reason. It's hard to design a really good looking one.
But these are like full replacement front fenders.
Full replacement front fenders with the louvers. Huge splitter, replacement. You have some hood, replacement hood with some aero bits on it, a wing, a diffuser, everything.
Any rear body?
No, just a wing and a diffuser. Yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, canards? Or is that integrated?
Yeah, canards. Yeah. No, there are canards and then end plates as well. So this thing means business. Yeah.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, excited to see that. So you said 3 weeks away?
Yeah, 3 weeks.
Is like going to be out, like potentially done for the beginning of the season then.
Oh, we hope so. But the thing is, we're going to do it in steps. Like we haven't thought about stripping out the car or putting in seats, and we have a bunch of parts ordered.
Just leave them waiting.
Brakes, we have suspension, we have like everything. We just kind of want to. First of all, I want to baseline the M4 all-wheel drive and just see what it is like in stock form. But we kind of got faked out with the weather here. It was like really good weather for 2 days. We got a bunch of cars ready, getting things ready, and then now it's like -5 again.
So the M4 hasn't been tracked at all yet?
It hasn't been tracked. It's a brand new car.
You want to get a baseline.
Brand new car.
What do you think you can get it to before the body kit and then after the body kit in this season at GP?
So the G87 M2, we dipped into the 26s. Yeah. Which I think is really fast, and it's just with the various engineering parts, right? Like I think that's pretty moving for a non-stripped car. Like it was still very, very heavy. It was we lost about 100 pounds with seats and taking out the rear seat up and put the cage back in. We still had the stock battery. Like we didn't do very much with the M2. A lot of people ask me like, hey man, what's been done to this? What's the secret sauce? There was no secret sauce. It was literally like an off-the-shelf flash, coilovers, rear tow arm, a cage which added weight, took the rear seats out. We had lighter seats. That was it, right? So I think if we really pushed hard for that car, we lost another 200 pounds, did a proper tune, like it'd be in the 24s, like without a doubt, right? And the thing is, I never had fresh tires on that car. Unfortunately, I just was using scrubs. Like
I didn't ask for excuses.
Okay.
I feel like it's going to go back to 2 hours now.
Yeah. But okay, back to the M4. So Leo did a 115.5 at TMP with a stock one, just with tires.
Okay.
Gives you an idea of the performance of that car. It's good. The all-wheel drive is faster at TMP. We know that. And TMP is a short, tight track. So on a bigger track with more room, with more sweeping corners, even though it does weigh more, if we can put the power down and we go like 800 something horsepower, like it's going to be low 20s at GP. Stock-ish, I'm thinking like high 20s.
Yeah.
Like bone stock, 130, 131 maybe, or like dip into the 29s.
Yeah.
Modify it a little bit. It's going to be a little faster, 126. And then I think with the full aero kit with 800 horsepower, like it better be in the low 20s. Like it'd be embarrassing if it's not.
Yeah, I mean, low 20s 3RS times, 992 times.
It'll have way more power than the 3RS. It'll be way heavier.
Yeah.
But the aero on it is it's gonna make up for it. And on the back straight, if we have 800 plus horsepower, like no problem, it's gonna overcome that aero.
Blast through the aero wall.
Yeah. Just think about how quick it's gonna come out of 5.
Yeah.
All-wheel drive, just explode, boom. Out, right?
No.
With that much power, you can go slower in, crazy fast out, right? You don't have to worry too much about your min speeds.
Put the traction down as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's gonna be stable with that wheelbase. Yeah, it'll be interesting. I wonder if it's you're gonna get the exhilaration for sure, just from the pure pace. But I wonder what the driving experience is gonna be like.
Exactly, like rear-wheel drive, like you can slide it around a little bit more. Like you steer with the throttle a little bit more. Like all-wheel drive with a big heavy car like that, that's still likely going to push, right? Something that we need to manage. Something we're going to talk about later, maybe some trail braking.
Yeah.
To manage that front end. But if the front end is managed on entry and mid corner, it's going to be so fast. Like it'll make it up for all of it on the exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting. Excited to see this car in person.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get you in the seat just to try it out. Honestly, man.
Yeah. I need to get more seat time in like super high powered cars because I've driven the fastest car I've driven was a 991. Maybe it was a 991.2 3RS.
Yes.
That was like DDT and TMP, right? Actually, no, I also drove a 570S, which is faster in a straight line, I think.
Yeah.
Is it 570?
You need something crazier. Like honestly, those cars, like a 3RS, for example, like you were saying, like the throttle doesn't really change the balance of the car too much. It does a little bit, but the power band is so linear. The power delivery is so smooth. You look at a BMW, high horsepower, turbocharged, it just kicks you sideways. Like, it's just crazy, you know? So we'll start you can drive my car this season and then you move up to the Revozport M4 later on and you get your car ready too, right?
Yeah, I got to get this thing right. So like what worries me about the 86 is like it's going to be so high power, but as you said, like with a smaller wheelbase, it's going to be tricky to manage. And with this stock body, like it's going to be tougher for me to fit big tires compared to like what you guys are doing with the BMWs. Now it is lighter, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting. But the nice thing with running the Haltech is like hopefully I can make the traction control trimming and stuff like that like actually pretty functional.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll see. Next segment we want to talk about, I call it the Gone Viral segment. So this is kind of where we just kind of react to crazy stuff that's happening on the internet. So about a week back, I think this was, there's a guy on YouTube called Mark Rober. You ever heard of him?
I have actually, yes.
There's like a bunch of like engineering hacks and stuff like that. Former NASA engineer. Which is still extremely impressive. Worked on the Mars rover, I think, or something like that. So he did this video where, and this is something I've been kind of curious about. Basically, he did a test with Tesla's autopilot.
Yeah.
And if you can imagine, like Roadrunner with Wile E. Coyote, where he paints like a road on a wall, and just slams into it. So basically that concept, right? And so, if you guys don't know, like Tesla's autopilot system largely relies on optics.
Yeah, cameras.
Right, just cameras, right? Whereas the traditional technology right now for autonomous driving is using LIDAR, right?
That's right.
And the short of how a LIDAR system works is it just bounces lasers to measure distance, right? It shoots tons of laser beams that come back to the LIDAR unit, and then it can basically draw out. So it's like echolocation mode with lasers.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, it was like, obviously it was paid promotion with a company that's doing these essentially like miniature LIDAR units that you can use to map out things. So they went to Disney, and he went inside Space Mountain, which is like pitch black, right? But wore a LIDAR unit on his chest.
Okay.
And they basically mapped the entire roller coaster and then printed like a scale model of it, which is kind of cool. But the whole point is like basically comparing the two types of technologies. And what I found kind of interesting is they're basically I'm gonna spoiler, right? With the painted styrofoam wall, the car just drove right through
just smashed right through it.
Smashed right through it. Which obviously, like, look, like, yeah, like if it's optics based, then fundamentally I think that's just what's gonna happen, right? And like even if it has like proximity sensors with like radar or something like that, it probably won't kick in fast enough, right? But there were some of the tests that really intrigued me a little bit. Like, it also struggled, and by struggle I mean it failed when they were spraying water, tons of water, like almost like, I think, kind of like to simulate heavy rain,
right?
And it also failed through that as well. It smashed through the mannequin, which I found kind of a little bit alarming, right? Like that these edge cases. Now, don't get me wrong, you could say like, well, hey, like if you were a human in those situations, you also wouldn't be able to see it. But what I think what worried me the most as like a potential consumer is the car was very confident and continued to drive through that, right? Whereas a human would have been, oh, like I can't see through that, let me not try to drive through that then, right?
At least slow down.
Slow down.
Control, yeah.
It just kept on going at its pace, right? So I mean, you guys own a Tesla. Did you guys pay?
My
for
wife
autopilot?
owns a Tesla. My wife owns a Tesla. So we had autopilot for, I think, the first 6 months. I think they gave it to us for free, and then I used some sort of Tesla code, something I got it for another 3 or 6 months, like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it works, but you still really do have to pay attention, because what we found is like in the city, like sometimes there's some weird turns here and there, or something happens, it turns off itself. It tells you like autopilot's not working right now.
Yeah.
Like, just kind of tell you beep beep beep. It tells you got to start driving now, basically.
Yeah.
Right. What's really good is the like on the highway.
Yeah.
Where it's like straighter roads here in Canada. It works really, really well. Yeah, it works really, really well. I think it's also really good for bumper to bumper. It's not high speeds. It's just like the car is just kind of following the one in front of it.
Yeah.
But we found that like we're trying to get somewhere with autopilot in the city or off the highways, it does sometimes just turn itself off, especially on Highway 7, for example, where they have those bus lanes.
Yeah, it doesn't.
There's bus lanes, and then there's like multiple lanes, and then there's like a pedestrian lane. It just kind of gets confused, and more than a few times, it just stopped working in those instances. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we use it for bumper to bumper driving and highway. It's great. Otherwise, better to just drive yourself, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to jump back to like the LIDAR technology as the alternative, right? So like it is kind of interesting, the company that with these like handheld units, essentially. I do wonder, like, obviously they're like autonomous race cars now, where it's like challenges where like they're trying to like compete against other autonomous race cars. Yeah. But I wonder if there's an application for this in proper racing as well, with like human drivers, where like you can equip a car with a LIDAR unit. And I'm just thinking, like, what could it be used for? And something that popped to mind for me was like, if you had a LIDAR unit kind of pointed more downward and scanning the road ahead of you, let's say in the rain, you could probably actually find where the track is the driest from the road surface, right? Like if you have standing water or running water, that's pretty obvious, right? And then where you see more rougher textures, you're probably gonna have potentially more grip. You couple that with like a heads up display, you could literally see like in front of you, like like a color gradient of like.
That's crazy.
That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. That's crazy.
But then, like, I don't know, like, does that like ruin the spirit of racing a little bit in terms of like just all these like different technologies, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a cool idea. You should do it, man.
Well, like I do want to. I mean, we'll see how much one of these units costs. I'm sure they're still like tens of thousands of dollars, but it would be really interesting to kind of put one. Even like you could basically use that as your laser scan of tracks, right? I think that's probably. I don't know if they use LIDAR, but they definitely use They use lasers to scan tracks for sim racing. So like, yeah, if the cost comes down, then you can use that for sure.
Yeah, cool.
All right, let's get to our last segment for today, which is HPDE Corner. And I want to preface this by saying like neither of us are professionals. We do instructing, but we have been instructed ourselves by professionals in the past, right? So I think we can pass some of that information down as well. And the topic I wanted to talk about today is something that I think is pretty common to discuss at the beginning of an HPDE journey or track driving journey, but usually the advice is to avoid it if you can, right? And when you first get started, and that is trail braking, right? So maybe let's start with this. Like, do you remember when you were first driving on track and being instructed? Like, what did your instructor tell you about trail braking?
The thing is, I think at OTA, I did the instructor school. They actually told us not to teach trail braking.
Right.
They wanted us to teach just being as smooth as possible and one input at a time. So you do all your braking, you gradually come off the brakes, you turn the car in, and you gradual application of the throttle as you unwind the wheel.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what they want us kind of teach, like everybody, no advanced techniques at all. But the first time I sort of, heard about trail braking was with Peter Hansen.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason is it was a rainy day at DDT, and he had a Toyota Corolla, and he was sliding a Toyota Corolla like all around the track, like drifting it, like holding these amazing slides.
Yeah.
We just had a conversation about trail braking, but the first thing I remember is just him saying like, you just need to use the brakes to get the weight on the front of the car and unbalance the rear. And that was just a crazy concept to me at the time, right? Being, over 10 years ago, talking about, trying to slide a car, but I'm just kind of like brand new at track driving, right? So that was my first thing about it. But it's really important in BMWs to manage the front end.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's just about, I don't think about it as like trailing all the way to the apex, which is what sometimes people talk about when they talk about trail braking, is holding some brake pressure coming off to load up the front end to keep some of the load on the front tires so that you can essentially give the front tires more grip.
Yeah. No, I like the word they use, like it's manage, right? That's right. So I think, because the thing is, like, when someone starts tracking and they're like, oh, it's an advanced technique, they're thinking like, oh, I want to try it, like it'll help me go faster, right? But you got to think of trail braking as something that you do it if the car calls for it. Exactly. Right? It's not just like in all cases it's going to be faster, right? So like the reason why you don't start, like if it's your first track day thinking about trail braking into a corner, is, as we know, grip. If you have a traction circle, you're going to consume grip from braking, you're going to consume grip from accelerating, and you're going to consume grip from turning. And so if you're trying to brake and turn at the same time, you're splitting that vector, right? A braking vector force. And so it's better just to focus on slowing the car down, getting into the right entry speed. Right. And in terms of like you talking about like, oh, it makes sense for BMWs to lower the front, right? And so that's where it kind of comes in, where like when you get more experience, you start to understand, it's like, oh, like I'm missing some front. I need a little bit more bite on the turn in. Or you carry that knowledge into a different car and that could bite you real fast. So for example, the TT, when it was in time attack setup on the alignment, you couldn't trail brake that thing.
Yeah, like the rear is way too loose.
Well, so yeah, the front is heavy, the rear just like completely unloads. And so like, turn 1 TMP, when we did our test day last year, pretty much everyone was like spinning the car because you gently tap the front brake and you start turning it in and the rear just kicks out. So in that instance, like, yeah, like the car is just not set up for requiring trail braking. In fact, like you have to be very gentle about that transition, right? Where you basically have to be off the brake before the turn-in point.
Right.
Which is, again, for a rear wheel drive car, like typically you're probably on the brakes a little bit into the entry.
Yeah. The idea is that if you stay on the brake, you're loading up the front tires, right? You're pushing the front tires into the ground.
Yeah.
That's how kind of like aero works, right? You're pushing those tires into the ground. So the more you push that tire into the ground, the more available grip you have, right? You're pushing them into the ground.
Yeah.
And so, because the tire kind of acts like a spring as well, along with the suspension.
Yeah.
And so manage is the right word, because it's not like you want to brake and then you slowly come off the brake as you turn. You're just using the brake, a fine balance to keep just enough load on the front tires such that you do have grip, and that the line, you're tightening the line, right, as you turn in, as you hit the apex.
Yeah.
And then of course you're on the power as you track out, right?
Yeah.
So I think manage is the right word. And it's all about feeling.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's one of those things where I wouldn't be too concerned about learning it as a skill, as more of as you get more experience, you're just probably naturally going to start experimenting with it,
right?
And you're gonna be like, oh, like I held on to the brake a little bit longer at that time, and it helped me get a little bit more turn in, or it's easier. Okay, let me try that again. What happens if I do it deeper, right? So it's just it's not like a complete mind shift in how you're driving. You're just naturally going to experiment with it.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump to Q&A so we can stay true to our word and keep this under an hour. So a bunch of questions we got from Instagram, and I'm just gonna spit these out. How do I learn? So this is from Vishal. How do I learn to get into car mechanics without any prior knowledge?
That's basically me, man. Like I have no
this guy knows
knowledge.
Nothing.
Now I know a lot, though. You know, like
okay.
you just see my next couple of videos, man. I did so much work on my new car. Did some work on the BRZ. Honestly, just have a relationship with a shop, right?
Okay.
Like you can watch a little bit, like develop a relationship with your mechanic, ask some questions. You can learn basically anything on YouTube.
Yeah.
I think you start super simple with things like
changing tires.
Changing tires,
It's
exactly.
probably the easiest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then move to maybe an oil change.
Yeah.
Like simple things like that.
Yeah.
Because those are just really like turn a wrench, right? That's basically what it is.
Don't go too crazy at the beginning. Yeah. Find people who are more up the curve they don't have to help you do the thing, but just have someone to observe helps a lot too, because there's a lot of things in working on cars where it's like, this is just how it's done. Whenever there's something that it's like, oh, this is just the way that it's done, you should always understand why.
Yeah.
Because in your mind, you might just be like, oh, like maybe it's not actually necessary. And you cut that corner, and then later on you realize it's like, oh, it's
like changing wheels. You want to go hand tight first, for example, right? Brake with a breaker bar on the ground and then jack it up. Like small little practices like that you can really learn from YouTube, your mechanic shadowing, whatever.
Yeah. All right, here's a controversial question. Which Jason is faster? From John Machado. He loves to throw in some controversy, huh? Huh?
Well, I think every challenge that we've had, I think I've won so far.
Well, I don't know. I think we've
all the challenges I've won, the M2 versus the GTI.
Well, no, so that's the problem, right? We actually, the only car that we've had comparable
TT, man. We both drove the same car, same day. I always get FTD. Bam. Let's go.
But you don't, though.
I do. Okay, Chris sometimes get it. Brandon got it that one time, but the team directive, okay, was to keep it under 159. I mean, sorry, keep it above 159. I did exactly that. These guys bust out 158.99, both of these guys. So
I think, okay, so the real answer, I think, is we don't have enough time in the same cars. I will say, if we're both hopping into a more high powered rear wheel drive car, you've got an edge because you have a lot more seat time with those type of cars. I think with the TT, that could actually be pretty interesting, where I think we'd put in probably pretty similar. Even at race pace, traffic has a lot of impact, but I think we were probably putting in very similar lap times. Chris is probably a notch above. Be interesting to do something like the 80s, like the Gen 2 BRZ would probably be a good benchmark. We actually wanted to see where each person is stronger. that's probably like the best car to kind of test.
I would say honestly, this Jason has a much better racecraft. So I need to work on that. But
you just gotta do some sim racing.
Yeah,
that's what it is
for sure. I mean, like, no risk, right, to the car, but I need to work on my racecraft for sure.
Yeah,
I don't fake enough, I just let the racer in front of me, like, I'm doing this.
Yeah,
like, let me do it, or I'm just gonna keep trying to push through here. Like, you guys are really good in like faking outside, taking inside. You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
I think it's less about like faking. It's more like you need to make sure that you're like they know that you're there, that you have presence, and that you need to communicate with you driving that, hey, like that inside lane is a potential option for me, and I need you as the driver in front of me to respect that, or like that outside line is a potential option for me, right? And I think a lot of that is just like getting comfortable being very close to people on corner entry, right, and stuff like that, or like on the back straight, you get like right up to them, not in any like aggressive or unsafe manner, but I think it's more of like, I'm going to take some options away from you as a car in front so that I can control how this corner is going to develop.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
If they have too many options, then as the driver in front, I think that's where like, the miscommunication and like, oh, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? And like, you don't want to be reacting like too aggressively.
Yeah, but shout out to John. He's a great guy. Yeah.
What's that?
I said shout out to John. He's a great guy. That was his question, right?
Was it who? Let me see.
John asked that question.
John Machado.
Yeah. Great guy.
John.
Great guy.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do a few more here. What do I got? Okay. What's one thing you tell your 8-year-old self?
Yo, invest.
This is from Vin.
In Vin? I don't know, man.
Invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah, exactly. Get your parents to invest in Apple, then move that to like wheat stocks, then move it to like Nvidia, then move it to Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's always the Back to the Future concept of trying to make money with the sports almanac. How much from Mikey Lim? How much for a day of instruction at GP with topless Jason Lee?
Topless Jason Lee? I don't know if they're gonna let me
you would pay for that.
They wouldn't even let me on track. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do I get on track with topless, right? But I guess like, I would have to like look ready, and then on the track where the marshals can't see it, then I go topless. But man, no, Mikey, anytime, man. Come out to OTA school. Shout out to OTA, Ontario Time Attack. We have 2 instructional days this year where I'll be instructing. Jason, I think, is instructing. A bunch of our friends, Sean, the whole lineup of really good instructors. Again, we're going to be at DDT as well as Mosport GP. So if you want instructing, I don't know if it's going to be topless, but check us out there. We'll be there. Also, Razor Motorsports will be there as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do one more question. I'll wrap it up. Let's see. Will you be doing more documentary? So this is from our friend Noah Webster. Will you be doing more documentary style videos for Lucky Dog? Love them. All right. I think it's probably more of a question for me. Those are a ton of fun to do. They are really tough to edit because the problem is like once you pick that first song of like cinematic piano, it kind of sets the tone, and then you're just like, dang, I gotta match that sound design throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the cutting needs to be on point. And so like, for example, like those 20-minute videos that I did for this past season, both of them, like it takes like a week to edit one of those things. And I really enjoy it as an art form. So like it's more of like a thing for me, and I'm glad that people enjoy it. But in terms of trying to grow the business and try to grow the channel, it's tough to find the audience for that. And so like I'm still trying to keep some of those cinematic cues and that styling in the content I'm doing, but I'm trying to make things a little bit more approachable and a little bit more general audience, but still trying to stay true to making it something that even the hardcore track enthusiasts are going to enjoy as well. We'll see. I think Octane Invasion, our friends, just dropped a great documentary about Numi. That definitely gave me a little bit of energy to try to do some things as well. But I think what might be good for documentary work going forward is like, I've always just been like a solo filmmaker for that stuff. And it's just when you're not only filming, but you're also driving, and you're driving like 2-hour stint on a day, like it's some of the most tiring things. So I think it'll be an opportunity for us to do some collaboration. I'm definitely thinking that we'll do something together, like you, me, and then like the Octane Vision guys will put something together special for this year. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, we have a lot in the pipeline. Like I do something different than Jason. Jason does something different than I do. Octane Vision does something different, but we all kind of work together, collaborate, and it's all about the passion of cars and the community and our own journeys as well. So follow along, 2-Track Minded, Driver's Paddock, Octane Vision. Shout out to all of you, and we've got a lot in store for 2025.
And if you're an automotive content creator and you want to collaborate, especially if you guys are local, reach out.
Absolutely.
We definitely want to do stuff together and knock down any gatekeeping in the space.
Absolutely.
Of, automotive enthusiasm.
That's right.
In our area. Yeah, I think that's 50 minutes. That's a wrap. We'll stay true to our word on this one. Hopefully you guys are getting into the habit of joining us for these on your commute or wherever you are, mindlessly doing work.
That's
something
right.
like that. And we'll keep refining, and we'll try to keep this going. Any last words, any shout outs?
No, but just, like as Jason said, just, reach out, stay in touch. We want to build this community really, right, of people that just love cars. And if you have a cool story, a cool car or something, like reach out, like, comment, subscribe. It really helps us. And please share.
Tattoo.
Please share, like, comment, subscribe.
Lower back tattoo. Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
That would be a horrible punishment for some sort of track battle, huh?
Yeah.
Don't give me ideas now. All right. With that, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.